In the following chapter, we will be taking a look at the disinformation in the Western Balkans, and we will start it off by talking about disinformation in Kosovo. Disinformation in Kosovo has become widespread and affected by a number of factors that touch on topics such as finances, politics, and ethnic division. The overall media landscape of Kosovo has issues that allow for disinformation and misinformation spreading. The media landscape in Kosovo faces issues with regard to cybersecurity, weak independence of public media, and division of media along ethnic lines. Experts claim that disinformation in Kosovo is present and that traditional media such as televisions are not regarded as the main sources of disinformation in Kosovo. On the other hand, the usage of social media is high in Kosovo, where Facebook is listed as the most used social media in the country. Additionally, Facebook is also regarded as the social media where disinformation spreading flourishes, since posts can reach a high number of people in a short period of time. According to a report conducted by NDI in Kosovo, there was a significant divide between what people in Kosovo believed with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to NDI's findings, 39% of Albanians in Kosovo believe that China is responsible for the widespread of the virus. On the other hand, only 21% of Serbs in Kosovo believe the same for China. Moreover, 29% of Serbs in Kosovo believe that Bill Gates is responsible for the virus, while only 19% of Albanians believe so as well. It is worth noting that Kosovo has the highest rate of internet usage in the Western Balkans with a score of 96.1 out of 100. Additionally, the report states that 1.1 million people in Kosovo use social media, with Facebook leading at 910,000 users, followed by Instagram with 750,000 users. According to NDI's report from March 2021, a staggering 66% of the internet users rely on social media to get informed on the latest news. Furthermore, in the interviews held for the report, NDI was told that sharing information through social media has an effect on people which would make them more prone to believing narratives and discussion present in their network. This enables for disinformation and misinformation to be more present, as messages shared with friends and family are more believable. As previously mentioned, there is a present ethnic divide in Kosovo media. Typically, Kosovo Serbs obtain their information from Serbian media sources, whereas Kosovo Albanians obtain their information from Albanian sources. Serb-majority municipalities in Kosovo obtain their information from one media broadcaster in Belgrade. Although RTK2 is a Kosovo-owned media that provides news in the Serbian language, none of the Serb-majority municipalities broadcast RTK2 or other alternatives provided by Albanian broadcasters. It is important to note that there are two sides through which the situation with regard to ethnic division can be viewed from. It is important to state that the quality and quantity of news produced in Serbian language is limited. Nonetheless, it is also important to note that even though RTK2 is a state-sponsored media channel that specifically produces content in the Serbian language, the Serb minority in Kosovo does not turn to this news channel to access information. It is important to highlight that the Serb minority in Kosovo is affected by disinformation and propaganda, which is specifically spread out in the region by Kremlin or Russia. The majority of news presented to the Serb minority in Kosovo is directly linked to and comes from media based in Belgrade. Furthermore, Sputnik's branch in Serbia adds to the problematic landscape in the region. The European Parliament has spoken out against the disinformation campaigns originating from Sputnik, which typically aims to lessen the statehood of Kosovo and further enhance ethnic divide in Kosovo. Furthermore, Sputnik has a significant influence over the Serbian community in Kosovo. This comes as a result of producing content in the Serbian language. Kosovo Online is another Serb media in Kosovo that is heavily influenced and funded by the Serbian government. Foreign influence can have a significant impact on the public opinion of a country if it is used to spread disinformation and false narratives. Some of the effects can include manipulation of public opinion, polarization and divide, erosion of trust in government and media, spread of conspiracy theories, interference in domestic politics, creation of false narratives, and economic and social disruption. The state of journalism in Kosovo needs significant improvement. According to a report by the Association of Kosovo Journalists, the main issue that Kosovo journalists face are with regard to safety and financial stability. Journalists in Kosovo tend to move from one newsroom to the next in search for better opportunities and work conditions. The Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation suggests that journalists and media followers have raised growing concerns about the work conditions offered to journalists. Out of the interviews conducted for the NDI report, approximately one-third of subjects stated that they do not have standard contracts with their employers. AGK also states that journalists in Kosovo are expected to produce a great volume on news articles in a short period of time. This affects the overall quality of journalism and typically affects journalists that work for online news portals. Journalists in Kosovo tend to skew reports that not become targeted or push away financial backers. Furthermore, journalists in Kosovo are also subject to both physical and cybersecurity attacks. Such attacks have pushed journalists towards what is referred to as self-censorship. It is worth noting that journalists in Kosovo also lack specialization. Typically, they are expected to cover a variety of topics even if they are not fully competent to address them professionally. Even though the media landscape in Kosovo is relatively small in size and faces issues, it is still vivid and pluralistic. Most of the major private media brands are located in Pristina. Nonetheless, the public broadcaster RTK still has an important role. Online news portals are quite popular and include strong brands such as BIRN and Kosovo 2.0. Up next, we're going to be talking about disinformation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina, like many other countries, faces significant challenges with disinformation. Disinformation is often used for political purposes in Bosnia and Herzegovina, with false information being spread in an attempt to influence public opinion and sway elections. The country has a complex political and social landscape with a history of ethnic tensions and conflict. Disinformation is often used to spread hate speech and incite violence between different ethnic groups. During times of crisis such as natural disasters or public health emergencies, misinformation can spread quickly and cause confusion and panic. The media landscape in Bosnia and Herzegovina is highly polarized, with media outlets often aligned with specific political or ethnic groups. This can result in the spread of disinformation and the amplification of false narratives. A lack of media literacy and critical thinking skills among the general population can make it difficult to distinguish between credible and false information. These issues contribute to a challenging environment in which disinformation can thrive, and they highlight the need for a comprehensive and coordinated response to disinformation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. This includes promoting media literacy, improving digital literacy, and strengthening the country's regulatory framework to address disinformation. It also involves collaboration between government, civil society, media, and tech companies to develop and implement effective strategies for countering disinformation. Most of the sources of political disinformation are media based in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There is, however, an alarmingly high number of media from neighboring countries which appear in the analyzed sample through their connections with Bosnia and Herzegovina-based media outlets using each other as sources and redistributors of disinformation. These media outlets form a large disinformation hub used by local and possibly foreign political actors to influence public opinion in Bosnia and Herzegovina and the region with considerable regularity and frequency. According to Reporters Without Borders, journalists in Bosnia and Herzegovina face substantial challenges, particularly with regard to safety and the media freedom. Journalists in the country do not have confidence or trust in the local authorities when it comes to their safety and protection. Thus, there has been a number of initiatives that aim to strengthen the legislative framework and the performance of the prosecutor's office with the aim of enhancing the safety and freedom of journalists in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In one way or another, the country is still recovering from past conflict and trauma. To some, there is a significant division between those who advocate for peace and those who support ongoing conflict and division. Journalist safety remains a pressing issue in the country. One journalist by the name of Dragan Bursak had to flee his town of Banja Luka to ensure his safety. This all came as a result of the backlash he received for an article he wrote titled "I Was Silent When Bihać Was Killed," in which he discussed the siege of Bihać during the Bosnian War. Dragan received multiple threats. One user on Facebook commented, "You will not hold your head on your shoulders, I can tell you that." The situation with regard to the safety of journalists in Bosnia and Herzegovina remains a dire issue. In the first 7 months of 2017 alone, there were 58 reported incidents where journalists were physically attacked. Let's move on and talk about the pressing issues of disinformation in Serbia. Disinformation in Serbia is a growing concern and an issue that requires immense improvement. Disinformation in the country is spread deliberately, and the platforms contributing to the production of false narratives are not anonymous. The ownership structures of the misinformation platforms in Serbia tend to follow conventional and often complex patterns. The identification of individual shareholders can be accomplished by examining the relationships between different companies and tracing the connections between them. These traditional ownership structures can make it difficult to determine who is ultimately responsible for the spread of misinformation on these platforms. The two most prominent figures in Serbian misinformation news and articles are Aleksandar Vučić, the president of Serbia, and Dragan Đilas, who is the leader of the main opposition party in Serbia. On the other hand, the third most prominent political figure that appears and is mentioned in Serbian misinformation news and articles is Russia's President Vladimir Putin. Given that Serbia has been a historical ally to Russia makes it a target of disinformation campaigns from Kremlin. Furthermore, anti-NATO and anti-Western ideologies from Russia are present among the Serbian community. According to Knežević in 2022, Russia's ultimate goal is to establish influence in the country and instill distrust in the West. Knežević also states that Sputnik, a Russian media agency established in 2015 by Vladimir Putin, plays a significant role in the spreading of disinformation in Serbia. Journalism in Serbia is in a dire situation. Journalists in the country face substantial issues with regard to their safety and freedom of expression. They are subjected to physical attacks and threats, as well as smear campaigns that aim to frighten or silence them. Journalists in Serbia are often subjected to political pressure and censorship, particularly when reporting on sensitive topics such as corruption, politics, and human rights abuses. Many journalists face economic pressure, including low salaries and limited job opportunities, which can limit their ability to pursue investigative journalism and hold those in power accountable. Journalists in Serbia are sometimes subjected to violence and threats, particularly when reporting on sensitive topics or when covering political events. Despite some progress in recent years, media freedom in Serbia remains limited, with journalists often facing pressure from both the government and private interests to self-censor their reporting. In 2021, Media Freedom Rapid Response Mission report states that in 2020 alone, there were 27 recorded attacks on journalists. Ana Lalic was the first journalist in all of Europe to be arrested under the claim that she was spreading panic about the COVID-19 situation. This came as a result of a report she wrote in which she questioned the capabilities of hospitals in Novi Sad to respond to the pandemic crisis. The case of Milan Jovanovic is one of the more well-known cases of journalists being targeted. Jovanovic's house was put to fire after he had reported on cases of corruption involving local public officials. After the case was investigated, 3 suspects were indicated, with one of them being the former mayor of Grocka, a municipality in Serbia. Upcoming, we're going to be talking about disinformation in Montenegro. Montenegro is influenced and divided by politics. Hence, media in Montenegro struggle to cooperate with one another, which allows for disinformation in the country to flourish further. Worth mentioning is the fact that certain anonymous websites in Montenegro exist solely to spread fake news and misleading narratives. Moreover, intimidation is heavily used to counter those who hold opposing views. Right-wing activism is present in Montenegro and is supported and shared in online social media groups and pages. Yet again, those who hold opposing views at times are persecuted even outside of social media platforms. As opposed to other countries who have made attempts to counter disinformation, Montenegro has more so ignored this issue. According to Bogdanovic in 2020, Montenegro has no clear established plan to counter the issue of widespread disinformation. Certain websites who spread such false narratives are labeled as fake news, however, no legal action is taken against them. Even though mainstream media in Montenegro are not regarded as main sources of disinformation, they do spread misinformation through biased reporting that favors certain political groups. In Montenegro, as in all other countries, the media outlets are divided. One might easily go about assigning labels, but dividing them into opposition media and media supporting those in power, which was mostly the case until the change of government in 2020, has changed after the war in Ukraine, and the new labels are pro-Western and pro-Russian media. Although this division has always been essentially present, some media in the country are still somewhat opposed to being categorized as one or another. According to Bogdanovic, Inst4.net and Borba.me are domestic sources of disinformation that spread fake news and misleading narratives. Reporters Without Borders claims that Montenegro is a country divided along ethnic lines due to the past history. As such, oftentimes media outlets are accused of betraying the nation and working towards the interest of foreign actors. It is worth noting that smear campaigns against journalists in the country are led by politicians from both opposition as well as leading party in power. Regarding the attacks on journalists, nearly all of the incidents have been solved. Nonetheless, the murder of Dusko Jovanovic and the attempted murder of Oliver Lakic still remain unsolved to this day. Up next, we're going to be talking about North Macedonia and the issues that they have with misinformation. Similarly to other nations in the Western Balkans, North Macedonia also faces issues with regard to disinformation and false narratives. Disinformation has become more noticeable when multiple accounts from North Macedonian users were being utilized to spread false and misleading information regarding the 2016 US elections. Mainly such content was coming from Veles, a small town in North Macedonia. Disinformation was also present in North Macedonia during the COVID-19 pandemic, where narratives about the effects of COVID-19 vaccines were being spread. According to Niko Dinoska in 2020, there are approximately 100 portals in North Macedonia that spread disinformation, propaganda, and produce misleading content. According to Mirnowski in 2020, the media landscape in North Macedonia is characterized by a decreasing quality of journalistic standards and lack of professionalism. This comes as a result of the influence of political and business elites in the country. Simultaneously, electronic media have had issues with abiding by EU regulations and standards, which North Macedonia must establish as part of its European integration path. Failing to uphold professional standards of journalism provokes discussions and divisions of opinions among media representatives. Additionally, this possesses additional issues for journalists in North Macedonia, which already face significant issues, which further allow disinformation in the country to flourish. Journalists in North Macedonia are also subjected to attacks. The president of the Union of Journalists in North Macedonia has called on the parliament to push forward amendments which punish attacks on journalists not only as attacks on individuals but also as attacks to their profession. Political interference in the field of journalism is also an issue for journalists in North Macedonia who may fall prey to additional pressure. Lastly, for this chapter, we're going to be talking about disinformation in Albania. Disinformation is also present in Albania. However, it must be noted that disinformation in the country is typically spread for financial gains and its goals are seen as superficial or opportunistic. Disinformation in Albania is generally domestic and utilized to generate more traffic. Moreover, disinformation in Albania rarely reaches a state where it becomes a managed and sustained disinformation campaign. Disinformation in Albania that comes from foreign sources is relatively small in amount and makes up only a small percentage of the disinformation landscape in the country. Worth noting is the fact that even media that are seen as professional also spread disinformation. Among these media, Yok Albania and Gazeta Tema make the list. In addition to disinformation that is used for commercial purposes, there is also disinformation in Albania that is fueled by political purposes. Edi Rama, the Prime Minister of Albania, has at times been accused of using disinformation to boost visibility. Journalism in Albania has seen improvement and initiatives towards re-establishing trust in media. As of 2017, Albania has partnered with UNESCO through an EU-funded project aiming to strengthen the trust in media. Alongside UNESCO, the Albanian Media Council began to make efforts towards increasing the level of transparency and accountability with regard to news and reporting in Albania. With regard to the safety of journalists, Reporters Without Borders state that the state is not taking the necessary measures to ensure the safety of journalists and their right to freedom of expression. According to Reporters Without Borders, attacks on journalists by organized crime groups become far more damaging when they are discredited by politics. This creates an environment that poses additional threats to journalists and potentially subjects them to further attacks in the future. On the other hand, journalists who express their concerns and critique to the government are regularly attacked in an attempt to discredit their claims. Moreover, they are presented hurdless when attempting to access public information, which further increases the amount of issues faced by journalists.